Good evening. Happy New Year. I cannot believe that's 2026. I think already it's like April or May or so. It's incredible how recent events make time seem completely different. We didn't get a moment of respite. I guess not for the best reasons, unfortunately. So, the county board is in session for the first meeting in 2026. I'm Takis Karantonis, still the chair for the year 2025, gaveling in this session. Happy New Year, everyone. I have already said, and welcome to the county board's January 5, 2026 organizational meeting. I'm joined here by all my colleagues, Vice Chair Matt DeFerranti, board members Maureen Coffey, Suzanne Cunningham, and Julius D.J.D. Spain Sr. So thank you, everyone, for gathering here today, especially you. It's always good to see people in this room, and the more, the better, the more often, the better. So I will open the meeting today by taking a moment to acknowledge, as we did last time, the land we are meeting on and the Native American people who lived on it. We acknowledge that the land comprising present-day Arlington County is the ancestral home and hunting ground of the Doig, Toshinet, and Piscataway people, many within the Algonquin language group, and some within the Powhatan Paramount chiefdom. We recognize that the Piscataway were driven from this land, but continue to thrive and take pride in their community despite the many injustices laid at their feet. We acknowledge that we do not know more about the historic Doig and Toshinet people, their lives and their descendants, because they were killed, persecuted off this land, and forced to assimilate by European settlers. We acknowledge that the prosperity of what we know now as Arlington was built in large measure on the stolen labor of people enslaved and indentured on this land, including those of indigenous and African descent, who were forced to work without adequate compensation, supporting the system that oppressed them. We strive to break down the systems which have discriminated against indigenous nations and all the people whose land and labor were stolen in the making of our community. Arlington is every person who is here and every person who has ever been here. We are grateful for that gift and will use it to work toward a kind, equitable, and sustainable community. As next, I will ask everybody to, if you can, to please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now with that, we are ready to begin our business today. It's the organizational meeting, starting with the election of the county board chair. Mr. Vice Chair, I have a motion to do, a nomination. I want to nominate our Vice Chair, Matt DeFerranti, to be our chair in the year 2026.
Second.
And it's also seconded. I want to say a couple of things by Board Member Spain. I want to say a couple of things. It's your second time, would be your second time if elected, to be chair. So basically, I know you for actually being chair and actually doing that job. It doesn't escape me that you are the most senior of on this dais. And that last time, you started basically with having to manage the January 6th situation, which the 5 years of which we celebrate or commemorate tomorrow. And I will never forget your composure and the fact and how you actually leaned in your first thought along the lines of what to do, what may happen. It was a very uncertain moment. Your first thoughts were, how can we hold Arlingtonians safe? How can we make sure that our officers are safe in the front of the Capitol, the west side of the Capitol? How can we best right now serve our community? And through the years that I know you, you have been a very strong advocate of the strongest values that I can imagine. Making sure that food insecurity is a very big issue, becomes a very big issue, and it's in front of everybody, something that many of us haven't really realized how important it was until you raised that. Making sure that we find ways, means, and the political will to do the right thing on affordable housing. And later also, you have been a tremendous partner in promoting real housing reform and land use reform in Arlington, fundamental for the future. You've been a very good player in this, team player in this board. And I have to say, this is an extremely important feature of any chair, and I see our school board chair here, and our superintendent, and our chief sheriff, Kiros. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your presence here. It is very important to be able to be a good team player. These are 5 Quaker members. They have a lot of different opinions. This is a very dynamic group, and it is always centered in one value: what is best for Arlington? What is best for Arlington? And you can imagine that this, in difficult times especially, this creates a lot of friction because, you can have different opinions about what is best, especially in a crisis. So Matt Ferranti has been always a steady decision maker, somebody who let others in, listened, provided his response and opinion, and worked with everybody for common good outcomes. So this is why I nominate you, and I hope my colleagues will join me in supporting you. So I have to ask you whether you accept the, Mr. Spain.
I don't know, welcome home, Mr. Chair. I'll keep it brief. So seconding this motion is, giving it a lot of thought. It is very significant. Matt, you have served as our chair before here on the board, and I've had opportunity to watch and learn from you over the years. And I'll be the first to say that my first year on the county board, it wasn't all bells and whistles, okay, to be fully transparent. But I think the moment that we're in, given the level of uncertainty, what you have showcased time and time again is the unique ability to get us through and to be the calm during a storm. And I look forward to working alongside you in your new role over the next 12 months in peace and in harmony as we work here to make Arlington a better place for everyone. And it's going to require some level of diligence. As Taka has talked about, we don't all see the same and agree here on the board, but we find ways to compromise and move together. And I hope in that spirit we can continue to do so in 2026. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Any other comments? Well, I have to ask you whether you accept the nomination.
I accept. Thank you.
So, stated. Vice Chair DeFerranti accepted the nomination. So then I will take a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
It carries unanimously, sir. Congratulations. I'm supposed to give you now also the gavel. And, there you go.
we do the do-si-do, and we'll do the full after this, just for colleagues. Thank you very much, Takis, for your very kind words, and JD for your kind words as well, and colleagues for each of your willingness and faith in me that I will be a good servant of the full board and a good servant of our community. I'm keenly aware that having done this during COVID does not at all mean that I necessarily will do this well this time. But I will keep to the ideas of being diligent and compassionate and thoughtful as we work in a difficult year. So the only other thing I would say, just briefly, for those here and the millions, actually probably tens, who are watching this at this moment on this Monday, I would just like to, I'll just briefly reiterate the things that I said as Takis was sworn in for a second term. He has been relentless, compassionate, and he has a blend of practicality and idealism that comes together while considering everyone's views. You have worked extraordinarily hard, and I would ask the audience and all of us to give Takis a hand for being a good chair. So with that, we will move to the election. The floor is now open for nominations for the 2026 vice chair. Ms. Cunningham.
I would like to nominate Maureen Coffey as vice chair for 2026.
And I want to enthusiastically second
Thank you.
the motion.
Great. Do you want to speak to your motion or your second, Ms. Cunningham?
Sure, be happy to. Aside from Maureen's short but incredibly well-delivered acting chair role this summer, which no doubt qualifies you to be an exceptional vice chair and when the time comes to be a chair, it's been my honor to sit on this dais with you since the very beginning, to have run together and gotten to know each other a bit there, and then to join this board as it was transitioning from one generation to the next. It has not been easy. I think as Mr. Spain mentioned, there have been some moments, but it really has been sort of an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for real service to our community, and I'm honored that you're willing to step into that role. I'd also note that while we were in the same election, the electoral board will be really clear that Maureen won by at least a millisecond in the ranked choice calculation. So our seniority order remains in place. And I would also add that our skill sets don't fully overlap. And so in that election, she was the one live tweeting. I was not. I was watching the screen. So I would just say, Maureen, your commitment to our community, your commitment to order and discipline on this board, your commitment to fiscal discipline in the face of major challenges are all deeply appreciated. As well, I want to call out your commitment to staff well-being across our staff and across the manager staff. And I think going into this year, and coming out of the COVID years, the tanks are a little empty, and so that's a really important principle going forward. And then finally, I would just say you have been exceptional and diligent in ensuring that not only are all voices heard, but they are sought out and brought to the table if they're not already in the room. And I hope that you will continue to do that. It's no surprise to folks up on this board, on this dais, that it was my preference that we might shake up the seniority rotation, both because it's fun to have change once in a while, but also because I don't savor 2027 when, if we stick with the regular order, our chair and vice chair will both be running for office. I think it's kind of a rough pattern that we have that our chair is running for office. So I wish you well, Chair, and I hope that we will move off of that in coming years. But with that, I'll close.
Thank you. Did you want Mr. Karantonis? Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mr. Karantonis.
I will say one thing that I always thought about Maureen. It's a great feeling to have a conversation with Maureen and Maureen have an agreement with her. Because it's always a dynamic conversation, a thoughtful, it goes deep, it bridges different models of thought, and it bridges different political ages, physical ages, cultural ages. It makes a lot of work, the thought that we exchange. So I learned a lot from Maureen, not only during your time here, but even before that. So I really look forward to your vice chairmanship. You brought very solid policy thinking here, challenging policy thinking, challenging in the good sense, not as in difficult, but as in focused on outcomes. And I really am very grateful for that addition. So I'm very happy to second this this motion and to vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. I will just say briefly, I agree with both of your sets of comments. I like the way you put it. It's a very good thing to agree with Maureen. In the few instances where we have not, we both, Mr. Spain said, or I think maybe one of the two of you said, always steady and always calm. And I do not think that my wife would say that I'm steady and always calm. Many attributes, but I do believe that I can bring resilience and focus, and the strength of your commitment to the principles that you bring to the board is inspiring. Not always simple, but inspiring, for sure. And then the resilience that you bring to continuing the work strikes me as, gives me full confidence that you will do a great job as vice chair and as we lead this board in a very difficult year. So I'm thrilled. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Ms. Coffey as vice chair say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously, and I would now turn it, see if Ms. Coffey, you had any thoughts or remarks that you wanted to share.
Did we ask Ms. Coffey if she accepts the nomination?
I think by voting yes, she
Yes.
did. So
That works. Wasn't planning to say much, so I'll keep it short. I really appreciate the confidence of this board. I think, I am not a person for whom it was inevitable that I would sit here and would be here, and wasn't part of my 5-year, 10-year, 50-year plan. Not that I've ever made a plan that lasted that long, but it really comes from a place of wanting to represent and wanting to do good and do right. And I think, I'll have much more to say later on, but I just feel very immensely grateful. And, I'll take a special moment to share that you all know my grandmother passed away late last year, and I am wearing her jewelry today so that she is with me a little bit tonight. And I just think about all of the legacies and the people who brought us to all the places that we are. I think it's easy to reflect both during a period of loss and at the beginning of a new year. And I think that's one of the biggest things I'm reflecting upon. So thank you.
thank you very much, Ms. Coffey, and I think everyone in the room and watching will know that she is here with you. Whether you have that brand of faith or not, she is here with you. So thank you very much for leading. And we do musical chairs. Everybody, do you have green notes, just so that we disclose that we have green note cards that are showing us where to? And
Takis got it wrong.
Of course you did.
Takis, I don't think there's a chair in the back, but we will.
We make it every year.
We do. Okay, so.
All the way down.
Thank you, Mr. Kushner, our clerk, and thank you for moving through those motions. Next on our agenda is item 4, adoption of the calendar year 2026 County Board meeting schedule, and I'll just cliff note it. Let's see, I tried to share. Is there a motion? Let's see. A few minor updates. I'll summarize the small changes to our meeting schedule. The preliminary schedule was adopted in November. I'm sure everybody in this room read it thoroughly. First, the start time for recessed meetings on Tuesdays has been adjusted to begin at 3 o'clock. More on that in a moment. Second, the start times for the budget and tax rate hearings have been slightly adjusted to start no earlier than 6:30 p.m. on the evening of each hearing. I believe that's instead of 7 p.m., which is just to make sure we use the time as efficiently before it gets too late. Third, the CIP, the Capital Improvement Public Hearing, has been scheduled for July 7th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. With that, is there a motion on the adoption of the calendar year 2026 County Board meeting schedule? I'll go ahead and make the motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we have in this case, we have a second by Mr. Karantonis. And with that, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We're on to number 5 on our agenda, the adoption of the calendar year 2026 County Board meeting procedures. Perhaps not to everybody in this room, but some will know that this has been the subject of some debate and discussion over the years, and this past year is no exception. The proposed procedures have been updated to reflect changes to the start time of start time of our recessed meetings. It's in these specific procedures. The details, I did mention it on the calendar as well, and reflect changes to the timing and sequencing of our recessed meetings. Recessed meetings will now begin with reports, recognitions, and appointments, immediately followed by our closed session and dinner break. We are going to try our best to be on time as we work through those items. In addition, for 2026, the sequencing of pulled consent agenda and regular hearing items has been switched. Items scheduled for the regular hearing are heard first, followed by items pulled from consent. This is to give more predictability to staff, applicants, and members of our community who may be planning on a 6:30 p.m. start time for regular items, which are often delayed with relatively short notice due to consent items being removed from our Saturday agenda. Next, a few updated procedures for the Saturday regular meetings. First, the deadline for advanced online sign-up for public comment will now be Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. This will give our clerk's team sufficient time to address any pre-meeting logistics or considerations. Examples include requests for reasonable accommodations, posting, and sharing the speaker list. Second, in-person public comment sign-up will now close at 9 a.m. on the morning of the regular meeting. This changes for the same reason, to allow our clerk's team some additional time to assist members of our community who are attending our meetings. Finally, with respect to the one speaker per topic rule, the board is maintaining the rule due to a need to maintain an efficient Saturday business meeting for all involved. I will note, I think it's important to note, that over the last year, we have heard from many in our community and wish to recognize that there is both a need and a desire for a forum where members of our community can present their viewpoints that are not subject to this one speaker per topic rule. To that end, the board has scheduled open town hall meetings in 2026, where as many folks may attend to share their views as possible within the duration of the meeting, without this one speaker per topic rule. In addition, the board has scheduled in-person Open Door Monday sessions for each month throughout the year. This is a reasonable step as we move further and further away from COVID. More information will be posted in the coming days on the County Board's Open Door Mondays website. With that, is there a motion to move the procedures as reflected in the December 31st, 2025 staff report? Go ahead.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis and Ms. Cunningham. With that, how do all those in favor vote signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. So we have adopted the meeting procedures as revised. So now we move on to item 6. I will pause in my zealousness in the first few minutes. We all made the vote, so we all can own our votes, but is there any additional comments that folks would like to say, keeping in mind you have full opportunity but not need to say anything on this second, on the meeting procedures? If you want to change your vote, please also signify that as well. But is there any comments that anyone has on the meeting procedures?
Oh, I don't.
Ms. Cunningham?
I just want to say a huge thanks to our board staff for chasing down the entire region and maybe the whole country's different approaches to public comment and to early sign up. We really did do a lot of threading the needle to try to make sure that we are open to everyone, but also disciplined and organized enough to get those meetings moving and get people back into their real lives. So we'll try it this way, and there's other ways to do it, but this feels like a good compromise, and we can always change it later if we need to.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. I think it's super important to give a little context and color and break up those speaking. We did really consider different approaches. Fairfax County, I believe they just listened to all, at the end of one meeting in one fell swoop, they just listened to everyone at one time. I believe Arlington is semi-unique in that we respond to folks' thoughts, and we want to continue that. But I also will say that we do want to make sure that we have meetings that focus on the items that are on the agenda and really move us forward and respect the time and input of everyone as well. So that's the context within which we did some of the debate and the discussion. Now, there are other comments, Mr. Spain, Ms. Coffey on this one, or no? Okay. We move to item 6. We'll hear the adoption of our calendar year 2026 Rules of Procedure for the Capital Improvement Plan, which is CIP, budget and tax rate hearings. As I noted earlier, there's only one change to our procedures to align sign-up times with the earlier start time for each hearing. With that, is there a motion on the 2026 procedure rules for the CIP, budget, and tax rate public hearings?
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Spain.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the 2026 procedures for CIP, budget, and tax rate public hearings as reflected in the December 31st, 2025 board report.
Thanks. Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there discussion on this motion? This is a more minor than the one we just covered, so I would suspect none. Hearing none. All those in favor of Mr. Spain's motion signify by saying aye.
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 Unanimous. So that's item 6. Item 7, perhaps Mr. Schutz, some of the other semi-regulars, Mr. Pedowitz, will know we have this tiebreaker resolution motion that we make every year, which seems a little out of step with how we approach things. It would be to designate one of us as sort of the super special power to break ties. And I think it's fairly unanimous. I've never heard discussion that we should designate such a super person. The adoption of the 2026 tiebreaker resolution, there have been no changes to the board's tiebreaker resolution for 2026. Is there a motion on this one?
I move adoption of the tiebreaker resolution that reads, "Be it resolved that the Arlington County Board determines that there shall not be a tiebreaker whose duty it would be to cast the deciding vote in the case of a tie vote of the members of the Arlington County Board during the calendar year 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to that? Keeping in mind, I didn't mean if you're for superpowers, speak to that, but anything you wanted to say to that, Ms.
Just if it ain't broke, don't need to fix it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. With that, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the 2026 tiebreaker resolution signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That's unanimous. Passes 5-0. Next, we will move to the chair's regional and other appointments. I move adoption of the following chair designations for terms ending December 31st, 2026, unless otherwise noted. So I think Mr. Kushner is going to put them up on the dais, up on the screen. He already has. I will read them. I will seek to be both efficient, but also not to be too quick. The following chair designations will be effective through December 31st, 2026, except where noted. Designate Maureen Coffey and Susan Cunningham as co-chairs of the Audit Committee. Designate George Bailey as chair of the Civil Service Commission. Designate Cynthia Lewin as chair of the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. Designate Julie Evans as chair of the Community Oversight Board. Designate Ben Davanzo as chair of the Crystal City and Pentagon Cities Council, and Robert Vaughn as vice chair. Designate Karen Audent as chair of the Disability Advisory Commission. Designate Nick Gregorios as chair of the Economic Development Commission. Designate Jillian Burgess as chair of the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission and Scott Pedowitz as vice chair of the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission. Designate Carolyn Haynes as chair of the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission. Designate Kellen McBeth as chair and Brian Coleman as vice chair of the Housing Commission. designate Jimmy McBurney as chair and Maggie Davis as vice chair of the Human Rights Commission. Designate Andy Greenwood as chair of the Joint Facilities Advisory Commission for a term ending December 31st, 2027. Designate Dr. Lisa Kaplowitz as co-chair of the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families. Designate Jill Barker as chair and William Way as vice chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission for terms ending May 31st, 2026. Designate Nia Bagley as chair and Karen Guevara as vice chair of the Planning Commission. Designate John Burke as chair and Michael Cornfield as vice chair of the Technology Advisory Commission. And designate Andrew Ferreira as chair of the Tenant Landlord Commission. With that, there's no need, I do believe I needed to read those, I sure hope so. There's no need for a second on that one. So all those in favor of those chair designations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So that motion carries 5-0. So now we will move to remarks by board members. And we have these.
Regional appointments to make.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you. That's why we put our faith in you as vice chair. Ms. Coffey, thank you. Next, we have appointments to regional bodies, which are actually very important and do take a significant investment of time. So our regional appointments, all of these are for terms expiring December 31st, 2026. To the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governance, Takis Karantonis to the Board of Directors, Susan Cunningham to the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board, Julius J.D. Spain Sr. to the Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee, Susan Cunningham to the Climate, Energy, and Environment Policy Committee, Susan Cunningham to the Chesapeake Bay and Water Resources Policy Committee, J.D. Spain to the Human Services Policy Committee, Takis Karantonis to the Food and Agriculture Regional Member Policy Committee. That's it for COG. Next, the Northern Virginia Regional Commission, again for a term expiring December 31st, 2026. Appoint Matt DeFerranti and Takis Karantonis to those two seats representing Arlington. To the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission for terms expiring December 31st, 2026, 3 seats. Appoint Takis Karantonis and designate him as the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board appointee from Arlington. Appoint Maureen Coffey and designate her as the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board alternate appointee from Arlington. And appoint Matt DeFerranti and designate as the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority appointee from Arlington. Next, the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. For terms expiring December 31st, 2026, 2 seats. Appoint Takis Karantonis and appoint Julius J.D. Spain Sr. to the NVTA Planning Coordination Advisory Committee. Thank you very much, Ms. Coffey. We do not need a second for that one. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Okay, I think I'm now back on track. So we next turn to remarks by board members, and I'll start off with remarks, and I will seek to be as succinct as possible, being mindful that there are other occasions when I'll speak more briefly. Joy cometh in the morning is the focus of one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous sermons that he gave multiple times, A Knock at Midnight. In my house, our 3-month-old son, Teddy, usually falls asleep sometime around 6 a.m. So joy cometh to mom and dad well after midnight, for sure. In 2026, Arlington County must remember both the midnight that Dr. King unsparingly described, and in each time he gave a version of this sermon, and his conclusion that joy does in fact cometh in the morning, which he first reached in the darkest moments of the 1950s towards the end of the Montgomery bus boycott. I believe the Trump administration's policies are a midnight moment for Arlington. Our values, peace of mind, and indeed our people, if you think of our federal employees, and not just our federal employees, are under attack. But as we start 2026, I'm confident Arlington will meet this moment, see dawn, and feel real joy again. I'm confident because our community stepped up during COVID in 2020 and 2021. I'm confident because of what our finance staff did in 2025 to meet the fiscal challenges we face this year. I'm confident because of our residents' care for each other, shown in small and big ways and expressed through emails, through the protests we see on the I-95 bridges, the prayer groups, volunteer service, and the activism that reflects the reality that our democracy is at stake. So to meet this difficult moment and to reach for joy as we work our way through the night until morning, I've proposed we focus on 4 priorities in 2026. First, policies that stabilize our economy and position us for recovery. Second, protecting and serving our most vulnerable. Third, keeping our communities safe. Fourth, protecting the investments that make Arlington a great place to live, our environment, our schools, and our children. First, stabilizing our economy and positioning us for recovery. Last year, we feared that the current federal administration would threaten our community, and it did. Our immigrant families have been targeted, our federal employees fired, furloughed, and attacked. Our LGBTQ plus students threatened, and our commitment to inclusion and our vision of valuing every person undermined. The struggles that 2025 brought are real. As a county government, we took significant steps to face the ongoing challenges by setting up resources in person and online to help our federal employees, amending our immigration policy to end all voluntary cooperation with ICE, and standing with our LGBTQ plus community and our schools. We also set aside $11.5 million in budget reserves to guard against the Trump administration's cuts. In 2026, our economic policies must recognize the existential threat to our prosperity posed by the cuts to the federal government. That means continuing the resources we have provided for federal employees and applying sound analysis and data to help with the challenges that are happening now. Our fairs, forums, and online resources were good starts, but we must continue responding to the essential needs of federal employees, and we must engage with our regional partners and with the incoming Spanberger administration to meet this challenge. We also must stay focused on the Commercial Market Resiliency Initiative, CMRI in Bureau speak. We must invest our time and energy in the conversion and redevelopment of office buildings into residential units, as we have done 6 notable times in 2025, replacing obsolete offices with hundreds of new residential units when they're fully built. Our actions, as we concluded towards the end of our July meeting, helped reduce our office vacancy rate by more than 1% in that meeting alone. That's real resources to fund the services we prize. We must continue addressing housing supply and to work our way through this Trump administration-made economy. We need to continue with those redevelopments and conversions. We must be fiscally responsible for the long term, protecting our AAA bond rating, and we must recognize that the challenge we face this year will require us to invest wisely now to counteract the economy we have. Finally, on the economy, our backbone is Metro. We have more Metro rail stations per capita than any other community in the DMV. We must fund Metro in a fiscally sustainable way to strengthen our economy and avoid unsustainable cuts to our budget. We will advocate in Richmond, and I will engage in the work in my capacity as a member of the Metro Board. Next, priority 2, meet the moment and work towards the morning means protecting and serving our most vulnerable. That's Arlington's history, and we must not stray from it in this moment. We began 2025 by partnering with the Arlington Community Foundation to help our immigrant families, and we also amended our policies to prohibit collaboration with ICE, as I mentioned. In 2026, we must continue to stand with our immigrant families and invest strategically in services to support those families. For our low-income families, 2025 posed a different threat than COVID, but during COVID, the federal government actually helped. Instead of attacking programs like SNAP that are critical for the survival and well-being of many of our neighbors, There are roughly 22,000 Arlington residents who live below 150% of the poverty line, which is 49,000 for a family of 4. They should be a top priority in our budget. In 2025, our community invested in additional resources as part of that, serving the most vulnerable, to fight hunger and provide food assistance through AFAC and food mini grants. But the challenge continues to grow to unprecedented levels. If you've seen Charlie Mang, he will tell you. Over 4,000 Arlington households now receive assistance from AFAC every week. The debate during the shutdown in late October about cuts to SNAP showed that Arlington and Virginia must take care of our hungry because the federal government will not. A second aspect of serving our most vulnerable is housing. In 2025, we invested in our homeless service providers in a way that I believe is unprecedented in Arlington's history. Credit to you, Mr. Manager, and Ms. Cowan, Ms. Friedman, and as well each of you on the board for the work you did to help with that effort. In 2026, we have to continue investing in preventing homelessness through our housing grant programs, eviction prevention, yes, our capital improvement plan in thoughtful and targeted ways, and by investing in affordable housing even when there is federal uncertainty. A new housing policy that I propose we work on in 2026 is a broad effort to engage our faith institutions in providing affordable housing. At the state level, there is legislation referred to as YIGBY, Yes in God's Backyard, that will be debated in Richmond. The details of that legislation will be a matter of significant statewide debate. I'm focusing on the local right now. Arlington County should initiate a local effort to pursue legislation to accomplish the goal of providing additional affordable housing with our faith institutions. The devil will be in the details in Arlington, just as in Richmond, and it will take time, but we should start. The fundamental concept that our faith communities can partner with the county to deliver more affordable housing has broad support across our community. We should pursue it. Priority 3, we must move, as we think about being in the midst of an evening and a dark time that we don't know when dawn will come, we have to work towards it. We have to keep our communities safe, and that means our police, fire, and EMS services and the criminal justice system must work to protect Arlingtonians. They have. We have to show it in our budgets as well. The board has already agreed to an additional $10 million in ongoing funding for our police and fire departments to address the significant vacancies in our police department and the ongoing need to hold over firefighters when we are understaffed. This is not an investment I take lightly, and I'm not brilliant, but I can read the room enough to know there are several sheriff's deputies in the room. Your service is also valued. We're mindful we can't do everything we might wish, but your service is also valued, and in the budget, we will have a fulsome debate to value the work that you do. I'll talk more to the sheriff's work in just a second. We must work on our criminal justice system, and perhaps one of the other best stories of this year that we can point to without taking for granted the service of our deputies is that the sheriff is moving to in-house medical services. This is something that Sheriff Quiroz, you promised, and it is the right thing for our community, and I certainly haven't stood in front of those remanded to our care. So I just thank you for that effort, and it is the sheriff's decision, but we have to fund it, and it turns out it's not entirely cheap, but it is the right thing to do. Our movement, so that's a big step. Our movement towards school zone speed safety cameras is another step we have really worked on that is perhaps underreported but very important. It strengthens traffic compliance while allowing our officers to focus on larger public safety issues instead of traffic stops. Similar innovations through the Community Criminal Justice Board and the Civilian Oversight Board will help us discover and implement best practices for safety. Priority 4, and I promise both colleagues and everyone in the room, this is the last one of these. We need to continue to work on the key services that have made and make Arlington a great place to live, investing wisely in our environment, our schools, and our children. Our environment, as well as our schools and services for young people, are hallmarks of our success. On our environment and climate change, I believe 2026 will be a year where progress in Richmond is particularly critical, and our budget will not likely now allow big new investments, much as we might like it. Smarter engagement with our community is critical. Planning and regulating will also play a role, and that's where I'll put my energy with respect to Arlington's policies. On engaging, this means that we must recommit to educating our residents about energy efficiency and solar energy. It should be cool to do an energy audit in Arlington. Working with staff and our community on the climate action plan will also be a focus. I am convinced that if more Arlingtonians understood the facts through energy audits, others would weatherize and go solar when appropriate and possible. With respect to our schools and children in 2025, I was honored to work with you colleagues to help pass more than $400,000 in one-time funding for after-school programs that serve our students in need. In 2026, we will not have new money to pursue those goals, but we do have a strong collaboration between our county staff and Superintendent Duran, you and your team at Arlington Public Schools that helps address after-school needs. Thank you to Mr. Manager and again, Ms. Cowan and others for their work. Our fiscal year 2027 budget will be developed over the coming months and adopted April should reflect the ongoing need to fund our schools well and the partnership that must exist with their school board and superintendent. I did notice in addition to Chair Zecher Sutton, we also have school board member Kathleen Karp. Thanks for coming. I very much hope that Governor Spanberger and the legislature invest in our schools to fund some of the costs of the JLARC study, a policy analysis that is now several years old that clarifies that we are underinvesting in our schools across the Commonwealth. Doing so could allow room for local funding to address county needs in this very difficult year for county needs. 4 priorities. Those are the ones. I'll close with a note about the calendar because discipline with respect to structure is something I've listened to, and it may not be a moment to moment, but hopefully this is helpful. January and February will focus to a degree we have not seen in years on the legislative session in Richmond. This is a moment. We have to grab it, and we have to take advantage of it. I look forward to working with you, Ms. Coffey, as our point and our lead. Vice Chair Coffey, and our legislative team, which I think has us in a great position. But I do think all of us on the board and in the community should take this time to realize sometimes after the January meetings, there's a slight lull, but we have to be thinking about Richmond, because if we think about it well, we can change our county for the better and accomplish so many strategic priorities from housing to climate to other areas. The county manager's budget proposal will come to us on or about February 21st, and then we'll have the busiest 6 to 8 weeks for the county board of the year. And we'll adopt at our April meeting. It's an opportunity to live Arlington's values all over again, and to do so in one of the toughest moments, countering the Trump administration's fiscal lack of integrity. There will not be any easy choices, and I will ask you colleagues to help me and all of us find the joy in those 6 to 8 weeks, because there will be some pain in addition. Second part of our year will run through May through June, through the July board meetings, and we'll focus on our capital improvement plan. Those are expenditures funded through bonds that Arlington voters have approved for 40 years, but also through some ongoing money. We have to be fiscally responsible there as well, keeping below the 10% cap that is sacrosanct, as our school board colleagues can tell you from the most recent discussions of their capital improvement plan. I also urge us to apply an equity lens to our investments, as we have sought to do. In July, we'll return to the governance discussion that we had in November and December. I'm truly grateful for the work that Mr. Spain, you and Ms. Cunningham did, but all of you, Mr. Karantonis and Ms. Coffey, you helped us reach more common ground than for sure we started in November. I believe we have an opportunity to move the conversation forward, and I'm committed to that end. August recess and the rest of 2026, I'm not going to offer predictions. It's a long way off, and we're in a tough moment. protect and stabilize and grow our economy, protect and serve our most vulnerable, keep our communities safe, and invest in the services that make Arlington great, our environment and our schools and our young people. Thanks to each of you colleagues, the county manager and the county staff, for the opportunity to try to meet this difficult moment and to work through the night so that perhaps at the end of 2026, we'll be able to say both that we sought joy in the year that passed, and perhaps here in Arlington by the end of 2026, we did start to see joy come in the morning. Thank you. Now, thanks, colleagues, for tolerating. I'll turn to taking notes mode and listening to you all. We'll start with Ms. Coffey, Vice Chair Coffey.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight or watching at whatever point in time other people come back to watch all of this. This is me and Ms. Cunningham's third round of these remarks, which is a little hard to believe, honestly. Time flies when you're having fun, but I really, in preparing for this, was reflecting back upon last year and where we left off, and the final words that I had spoken from this dais last year about our responsibility as a board to perform this job really to the best of our abilities. And I want to pick up where I left off and use my time tonight to get kind of specific about what I mean with that and a few of the ways I hope we embody that responsibility in 2026. This year, we find ourselves in demands caring and courageous leadership. It calls upon us to make hard decisions, to be willing to get creative and try new things that we haven't done before, and most importantly, to communicate and explain to the community so that we can bring them along with us. There is no hiding that we have a very difficult year ahead of us. This will be a difficult budget set within a very difficult national and regional political context, and it is unavoidable that we have hard choices to make. And with that, it is unavoidable that we will not make everyone happy. Caring and courageous leadership really requires of us that we parse out what is necessary from what is nice and determine which choices cause harm versus which choices cause inconvenience. And we need the courage to speak honestly with the public about the reasons behind our choices. For me, I believe that it is the responsibility of the government to protect those who need protecting and help those who do not have the resources or power to do it themselves. We need to invest in our social safety net, prioritizing food security, homelessness services, healthcare, and more. We will continue to work on housing production at all levels of income because ultimately we cannot subsidize our way out of a housing crisis that's created by a fundamental scarcity of options. And we must continue to put transportation safety at the heart of our work. And now is the time to fully commit to that with our Master Transportation Plan update. And while the social safety net, housing, and transportation have likely graced the priorities of this board innumerable times throughout the county's history, these are not normal times, and we cannot behave as though it is business as usual. In previous economic downturns, we were able to rely on the state and federal governments to help us out. This time, the federal government is a direct cause of our economic situation, and our state government is equally as burdened with their own impacts, such as protecting SNAP and Medicaid and whatever program comes next on the chopping block, making it really hard for them to step in and fill the gap for us. So we face these challenges ourselves, and likely we will need to find these solutions ourselves. Challenges, though, can force us into creativity. For example, I think our office vacancy challenges, which are historic and unprecedented as everything in my millennial life seems to be, it really forced us to get creative, though, and brought forward our new office to residential conversion policy. A streamlined way to transition vacant, obsolete buildings into housing is one of the great successes, I think, of this past year. But it was not inevitable that it would be so successful. It required a flexible and tailored approach that fits the reality of each building and where it's at, and for both staff and the community to reframe our approach to development to fit something new and a new time. With difficult moments, they call for us to be willing to try new things, and I really hope that this year will push us to innovate and lead to more successes like our conversion policy, particularly because I think in economic development, we need to be willing to try new things for our short, medium, and long-term success. We don't know when we are going to come out the other side of whatever this is that we're in right now. And being able to iterate and innovate is the only way we are going to make it through this. And so the key is, though, that just doing these things, making hard choices and getting creative, is not enough on its own. We have a real responsibility to give the community enough information to understand the why, to help them understand the facts and the factors that bring us to where we are, that for every tough choice we make, there is a thoughtful rationale behind it that we can explain, and to seek them out and hear from them and do our absolute best to make sure they hear from us, even if they are not part of our usual cast of characters. It is our responsibility to gather the information, assess the options available, make tough choices, try something new, and then it is our responsibility to lay it all out for the public so that even when we disagree, we at least understand. I want our public to trust that we are embodying the values that people elected us for and that we are making the choices that we think are best for the community. And at the end of the day, it's okay if we disagree about where we end up on one thing. Rarely in policy or in government is there something with truly one right answer. What is not okay is leaving people in the dark without explaining what we're doing or why. As a member of this body, I have the privilege to see and know everything that's happening behind the scenes, which does give me confidence in the votes that I take. But the vast majority of our community does not have a chance to read every report and listen to every meeting and know every single thing that's going on. Failing to communicate with our residents leaves a void that people fill in for themselves, and rarely are people imagining the best case scenario. It's so easy to make assumptions about people's intent when you're lacking information. I think people in Arlington largely will agree with us in prioritizing our vulnerable people and populations in this budget cycle, even if it means cuts to some of their favorite programs. But they're only going to agree if they know that's why that's what we're doing, and that's the only choices that we had and how we got there and what else that we tried. Particularly in this year of difficult choices, if we aren't sharing the information and reasons behind each choice and making clear the trade-offs that were considered, it will be easy for people to lose trust in us. There's a community organizer principle that says we should move at the speed of trust, a slightly different way to frame the more common, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. If we are going to do hard things, if we are going to survive the storm that we find ourselves in, we need to do it together as a community. We need to build and maintain trust to ensure that the community comes with us in this very difficult year. And the good news is that we are getting started on some of this already here tonight. We're trying some new things. As already mentioned, we are adding town halls to our schedule for 2026, which I think will provide a critical new option for community engagement. We're enhancing our Open Door Mondays with a 50-50 virtual in-person split and making sure that our in-person locations are moving around the county throughout the year so every neighborhood has an opportunity to see one of us. And one last new thing we've already done tonight is our leadership for this year. I am deeply thankful to become vice chair of this board, while also super aware that I am the youngest ever person to hold this position, and as far as we know, the first ever renter. In many ways, those kinds of things are mostly symbolic, but it means so much to me to think about my generation and my peers. For all the people like me who are looking at apartments 6 months before the end of their lease to try and figure out just how expensive it's going to be once it's time to renew, and they just want to stay in the same place. For all of us who feel like government doesn't understand us or doesn't care about our problems, for all the young people looking at the state of the world and feeling just absolutely hopeless about our future, my being here is for you, to represent you and carry you with me through everything I do this year and in this role. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve.
It strikes me that we often allow for applause. I don't mind that I didn't get any, but we do need to applaud for Maureen Coffey, because that was a powerful conclusion as well as the whole remarks. Not saying the beginning was good. So thank you, and we're mindful of those who are not in this room as we try to do our best to serve. Ms. Cunningham.
Great. Well, hard act to follow, you too. But I'll try not to reiterate. My children and family know that I'm a pretty hard grader. So the first thing I do planning ahead for this year is to look back at last year. So you will have to bear with me a bit because just like my seat didn't change, which is hilarious because I always move around in the boardroom to like mix everything up. But just like my seat didn't change, my priorities are actually the same as they were last year and the year before, even though the times are shifting a bit. And I do want to go back through what we got done on those priorities last year, because it's really, really important. We can sit here on New Year's Day or soon after, as is reasonable, and come up with all kinds of important things we want to do, but whether we actually get them done with all the challenges that come is really the main question. So I'll start with 2025. You may have noticed that 2025 was full of tests, The airline crash, the immigration turmoil, and economic shots hit all of us differently and all of us hard. We faced global crises, rising hate, and political violence. Yet, we as a community stood strong together. We didn't just weather the storm, we held the umbrellas for each other. We kept our people first. That was the first theme last year, focusing care and resources on our immigrants, federal workers, first responders, and our youth. We launched the Youth Strategic Plan and expanded after-school programs, and my family proudly joined Dr. Duran and hundreds of other families to celebrate WNL's 100th graduation and getting that kid across the line. Yes. We saved lives together with fatal opioid overdoses continuing to decline, down 70% this year, and 0 juveniles. And thank goodness, after over 15 years of disruption, the Columbia Pike Forward project is done, mostly done, substantially complete. So all of those are good things. Second, on housing, as COG's Executive Director Clerk Mercer reminded us this summer, quote, Arlington is one of the stars when it comes to housing. We're on track to exceed our 2030 housing supply targets. We also approved 4,500 new homes this year, expanded emergency housing programs to meet rising need, and reached 12.8% of our rental homes being affordable. We also restarted fair housing testing to make sure that everyone has access to housing, regardless of circumstance. Third, on climate, we adopted our climate resolution. Boy, that seems a long time ago, but it was this year. Added solar at Lubber Run, which took almost as long as Columbia Pike, but not quite. Updated our green building incentive policy, and it stuck this time. And really important to me, we began the low residential study to thoughtfully consider building footprints, trees, and flooding in our lower residential neighborhoods. Fourth was fiscal resilience. Falling office values and rising economic insecurity tested us. Luckily, our fiscal year 25 program cuts, our overall intense fiscal caution at the time of our budgets and beyond, and the adaptive reuse policy really paid off. As a result, despite all those surprises, and there were a lot of them, We closed fiscal year '25 almost exactly on budget for the first time, almost exactly on budget, like near zero, but we made it. And we turned the tide on office vacancies. Finally, on the fifth theme for 2025, and remember them all because I'm going to test you in the 2026 list, we worked to serve you all better, bringing transparency and good government by first making it easier to talk to us directly, even if you don't want to. I've got teenagers, they don't always want to talk, but we're here at the Open Door Mondays, assigning board liaisons to some of our key issues and engagements so you know who to call, and then launching our faith leader roundtable. We also resolved constituent inquiries 25% faster. Still not fast enough, I assure you, but that's a really big lift. And that was a big lift for our board office and for the manager's office, with systems and people and a lot of troubleshooting to find those things that really never did get answered. You weren't wrong, Nick and others. There were some that got lost in the ether. We also put more information in your hands with the document search function, our AI assistant, Ava, who's pretty good, but not perfect. And then finally getting to real-time posting of site plan applications, which is, I really thank the manager for pushing to get that so that when we know something, you know something, even if it's a little confusing and we're still working through the details. And finally, we did deep audits of housing grants, paratransit, and community benefits. Not easy reports in some cases, but really important for us to innovate and grow and improve our efficiency and delivery. Okay, so you remember the 5? I hope you wrote them down, but I'll give you another round. For 2026, as any parent knows, or any driver on the pike for the last 15 years knows, disruption invites innovation. And in 2026, we'll need to meet this moment of a lot of disruption with creativity and resilience. So the themes are the same. First, we'll continue to put our people first, especially our most vulnerable neighbors in this most vulnerable time, with strategic investments in our safety net, the behavioral health hospital, and our public safety workforce. We'll uphold the US Constitution. It's kind of a good idea. And celebrate America's 250th birthday with local and national events and hopefully lots of pie. On housing and planning, we have a lot to do, and you heard it in other messages, you hear it in folks looking for homes. We do have more homes than households, which is a gift, really, but we have far from enough for-sale homes and deeply affordable rentals. Nearly all of our new homes and 58% of all homes are rentals, with only 11% of those being larger than 2 bedrooms to accommodate families and extended family. Our condos are aging, and our long-time residents risk being priced out. Meanwhile, expanded housing options, or EHO, has been a huge distraction and division, with few net homes created, much less homes that are affordable to most of our residents. I am looking forward, and I hope 2026 will be the year, please give me a nod, where the courts will decide the appeals so we can shift from litigation and division to rebuilding relationships and revising policy to create the homes that we need. So on housing in 2026, I will work to communicate and demystify the community benefits process, articulating trade-offs, making sure local priorities are taken into account, and tracking those benefits to make sure we are keeping them across time. I'll also consider with Ms. Coffey, Vice Chair Coffey, the input all of you have given to the comprehensive plan engagement, and decide whether or not we should add a preamble to our comprehensive plan. We will reimagine permitting and enforcement. We may not get it all done in 2026, so the manager may be about to fall off his seat, but he has committed that we are digging in deep on that. We know that there are pain points. We know that there are capacity issues, and we owe that to our community. I hope that we will begin to reimagine some of our generational sites, including the Key Bridge Marriott and the East Falls Church Metro, so that we can build for the future. And last but not least, 2026 will be the year where we reboot Housing Arlington, which has been sitting off to the side in the midst of EHO and COVID and other considerations. But we really, really need that plan, and we need it to be bold. I hope that in the reboot, we will deeply engage our real estate professionals so that we can figure out how to finance and build more owner-occupied homes in our community, that will strengthen real estate tax relief for seniors, revisit our definition of household to allow more shared housing that is legal, help renters and landlords understand the fair housing rules and implement them, support faith institutions as they're considering their next steps around housing, encourage more privately owned affordable homes, rental homes, preservation of existing homes, and development of townhomes. And finally, really get serious about expanding workforce housing. We have a huge gap there. So I wasn't kidding. Housing is kind of a big deal, and we have a whole lot to do. The third area is climate, continuing to respond boldly to the generational challenges we face. We will launch our climate action plan and start our budget metrics to reduce carbon, flooding, and heat impacts. We will move the low residential study forward to balance building footprints, flooding, and tree loss. And we'll work with our General Assembly on long delayed and long overdue changes to allow us to better control our tree canopy locally. I think we're going to get to considering noise and signage ordinance tweaks as well to help with some air quality and waste issues. And then finally, we will update the standard site plan conditions to reflect our changes in the green building expectations. Okay, fourth, who remembers? Gotta try again. All right, you can replay the tape at 2 speed and you'll get it. Fiscal resilience was the fourth. Given softening revenues and rising expenses, this will be key. And I will once again pull the pencils out and the index cards that Chair DeFerente likes to give me a hard time about, and scrutinize our budgets and find some program reductions to make us whole. Priorities will include stabilizing WMATA funding. This is the year, we've got to. Sustaining our reserves in AAA bond rating. We made it through 2025. We're going to make it through 2026. Reducing our public safety vacancies and getting our public safety teams home to their families. Reviewing legal staffing to improve our service and reduce our overall costs. Signing MOUs with many of our constitutional officers, our bids and partnerships, and then finally exploring additional stabilization efforts, particularly for our tourism and restaurant businesses that are suffering. Then to close out, on good government and transparency, there's also still a ton to do. And I will keep focused on this area as we expand the Open Door Mondays to more in person, as we add the town halls to give additional place for conversation, as we survey resident satisfaction for the first time since COVID. I'll also work to keep working with staff on technology tools that can help us improve service and response times further. I hope we will complete after actions on the Columbia Pike Forward project, as well as our trash management transition this year. Both have lessons to teach us. And then finally, I will partner with board member Spain to examine our county board structure and performance, to understand the history, the strengths, and identify possible improvements and trade-offs. And I'll note, while some of those changes could require state legislation, we should not wait to get started on actions that we can take now, whether separating campaigning from serving as chair, assigning board liaisons to each neighborhood or region, selecting a chair for multiple years, or revisiting salary and staff support to make the job more doable for more people, considering publicly financed campaigns, or just answering the mail a little bit faster so you know that we're here. So as we begin this new year of service, I want to thank each of you, neighbors, staff, colleagues, for your resilience, your commitment, and your belief in our community. I'll leave you with Sophie and Colin Hortman's call to action. They lost their parents to political violence this year, and that's rotten. But the day after, you know what they shared? They shared this. Hope and resilience are the enemy of fear. Love your neighbors, treat each other with kindness, do something, whether big or small, to make our community just a little better for someone else. So let's get to work to build a respectful, resilient, and innovative Arlington in 2026. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I was going to say, everyone who can name all five in 1 second, applaud, but both those who can and can't. So thank you, Ms. Cunningham, and we look forward to working with you, all of us. Mr. Spain.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to both you and also our Vice Chair, again, on your selections to office and positions. So here we are, 1 year removed, and the first thing I'm going to say is that I miss you, Ms. Cunningham. They moved me way down here in the end. Change. But I'm going to do a little bit of reflecting on my 1 year in office, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the future. I will say this up front. Actions speak louder than words. People, at the end of the day, want to see us get things done. We can talk and make promises all we want, but at the kitchen table, people want to see things done. They want to see the needle moved. So as we begin 2026, I want to briefly reflect on where we have been, I believe, and set clear some level of direction where I believe we are going. You've heard already that 2025 was a very challenging year marked by economic uncertainty, political change, and increasing pressure on our local government. But despite all those challenges, my friends and colleagues, we all remain focused and accomplished most of our initiatives. I know I did. Maybe I set low expectations. But if you go back and look at what I said last January, we did most of that. And I came here with this mindset, understanding that each of us all arrived here because we had large groups of people who supported us. And ultimately 60, 70,000 people, whatever, elected and got us to this space. But we also represent 200-some thousand Arlingtonians. Something I learned in corporate, and I say this to Ms. Cunningham a lot. I learned, tell me how to get to yes, no is not an option, and how are we going to move at the pace of need? We got to move. Status quo idealism will not help. We have to move the needle. So we made difficult decisions. Last year on the board, we found common ground, and we continue moving Arlington forward, I believe. That progress, my friends, was intentional. It was driven by collaboration. Yeah, we had hard conversations back there on the phone, through Teams, through text messaging, but we found ways to collaborate. And I would say that there was integrity, there was a level of trust and shared commitment to serve all the residents here in Arlington, especially those who rely on us most. So looking ahead, 2026 is both a year of responsibility and opportunity. You've heard our chair talk about, what's going on in Richmond with the Democratic leadership and the growing wealth and income inequality, I would say, not just here in Arlington, but across the Commonwealth and our nation, we have a critical moment to align our county and with our state priorities to confront, I think, some of the most urgent challenges. And if you've heard a lot of folks beat this drum, you're hearing it coming from the governor-elect, you hear it from a lot of candidates, it's affordability. Affordability. Arlington is diverse, multicultural, nearly 240-some thousand people, yet too many families, workers, seniors, early career professionals, like my 2 adult children, are struggling to keep up with the rising costs. We cannot afford to leave anyone behind, my friends. Addressing affordability will require decisive leadership, coordinated action, and sustained investment. And I'm fully committed to doing that work in this upcoming budget cycle. And while our budget outlook remains challenging, I firmly believe that fiscal responsibility and our democratic values are not in conflict. In fact, the opposite is true. We have made some strategic investments in people, prevention, and stability to reduce long-term costs and strengthen our local economy. So in 2026, I will continue to advocate for disciplined budgeting. I'm not going to have the index cards and the pencils like Ms. Cunningham, but my priorities will be looking at affordability, attainability, equity, and long-term sustainability, while protecting our strong standing and our commitment to maintaining a AAA bond rating. And as though it's not enough, I want to thank my county board members for allowing me, because all of us have a pretty heavy lift, but this year I'm going to be the liaison to about 25 groups or commissions. I won't sit here and name them all out, Mr. County Manager, but I look forward to that. That ability to not only work locally, but also regionally is something I look forward to. I'm also going to be taking on a role as a chair of the Washington Metropolitan Government Human Services Policies Committee in one of our partnerships. So again, this significant responsibility and investment of time is a lot. And each one of us here on this board, this is not about coming here on Saturdays or on Open Door Mondays or you name it. I mean, the work continues. It's 24/7, 7 days a week. And I'm just grateful for the trust and confidence each of you have put in me to do and represent us on these 25 groups. But kind of repivoting, folks, at the core of my priorities and at the heart of democratic values, I believe, is an unwavering commitment to protecting our most vulnerable in our community here in Arlington. Affordability, as I talked about earlier, must be addressed holistically, recognizing the interconnectedness of housing, wages, education, healthcare, and opportunity. So I will remain laser focused in 2026, ensuring our policies reflect the reality and deliver results for people who need them most. I'm going to talk about a few areas that I intend to focus on this year. I'm going to ensure that our Department of Health and Human Services has the resources needed to maintain a strong safety net, social safety net, including people with disabilities, our youth programming, our veterans, and our LGBTQ plus communities. I'm going to work hard on advancing local and statewide efforts to deliver attainable, affordable housing and homelessness solutions, including faith and housing initiatives that prevent displacement and strengthen family stability in historically marginalized communities. I want to examine our workforce development programs to ensure they lead to good paying jobs and align with housing and economic mobility. I want to advance restorative justice practices to strengthen community trust and improve public safety outcomes. And I believe, friends, that our local government must do more in this area. I want to analyze how our internal government engages with residents and community organizations to ensure participation, you've heard about this a little bit, and feedback are meaningful, timely, equitable, and consistent across all of government, not just a select area within government. ensure fair and equitable resourcing for our first responders. You heard about our $10 million, but I also want to include and make significant emphasis about our deputy sheriffs, who in many ways have felt left behind. And I'm going to work hard with my colleagues to see what we can do in this upcoming budget cycle to ensure that they feel that they have not been left behind. We owe that to them. And lastly, Board Member Cunningham talked a little bit about the form of government, and I look forward to this engagement over the next 6 months because that's just a small part of everything that I'm going to be doing. But that evaluation in and of itself is one that's going to be built around a response to today's challenges and consistent with the direction that we gave as a board in December. Nothing more, nothing less. We're going to stay to that, and we'll come back, as we stated, in July and address it. But we will be taking that on, and failure is not an option. Public safety, human rights, education will remain top priorities as we respond to federal actions on local communities. Economic diversification is also essential to long-term affordability, and as many of you may know, I'm going into my second year as a liaison to the Economic Development Commission, so we have a lot of good work to do there, but we need to reduce our over-reliance, I would say, on the federal government and support displaced workers and strengthen workforce pipelines. And I'm almost done. So in this fast-paced, evolving digital era, my friends, and I say this to a lot of, I tell this to my kids a lot. When you talk about move at the pace of need, this is a digital technology moment that we're in. How we operate, how we navigate, how we communicate has to evolve quickly and swiftly. And so I remain committed to the responsible nature of that and strengthening our internal operations to improve efficiency, transparency, and accountability. Finally, as we close out here in 2026 in this approach with some clarity, urgency, and resolve, again, the affordability crisis, my friends, demands leadership. It's going to demand leadership that has courage, that is disciplined, and is values-driven. Our residents here in Arlington expect action, collaboration, and results. They deserve nothing less. So I'm committed to working with this board. I'm committed to working with the staff. Thank you, County Manager, for your leadership. Thank you to the County Attorney. Thank you to Mason, our clerk, and everyone else. But I will not waver 1 second, 1 moment to stand up for people in this community who feel they are not being heard. And that's for everyone. So again, as I close, I want to thank you. I look forward to the work ahead. I think I just got some goosebumps. I think we're going to have a very good year. So let's get to work because again, failure, my friends, is not an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Rounding us out, Mr. Karantonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations again to you and to our Madam Vice Chair. That is really a nice thing. I missed to say that, Madam Vice Chair. So it's in a special way beautiful to have to think about today's remarks or tonight's remarks in a more concise frame, because when you rotate out of the role of the chair, you are supposed to be a little bit shorter in your remarks. So I have to re-engage, and that's now one of the New Year's resolutions in mastering the art of conveying what needs to be said in just about under 5 minutes every time. I don't know if I'm going to make that tonight, but I will try. So frankly, we heard almost from all my colleagues about what 2025 meant for them. I struggle to summarize. Still need to digest that. I can say what a year, right? Or begin to recite the challenges one after the other. I brought a prop which for me just summarizes what 2025 was for me and for thousands of Arlingtonians. This is this card. For those who don't know that, this is a red card that is a Know Your Rights card that contains all essential information for one's constitutional rights. When agents of a government that has lost the respect for the law and for the common civic decency knocks your doors in the middle of the night, raids your workplace, stops you on an open street, arrests you, abducts you, and everything. This happened here in Arlington, Virginia, in my neighborhood. In fact, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security was in one of these raids. This is an insult. I will never forget that. I cannot never forget that. We can talk all we want about representation and, the form of government and delivery, etc. When this is happening on our streets, this just takes all the oxygen, all my oxygen anyway, and I think my colleagues too. So Arlingtonians like you and me, citizens, non-citizens, have to carry still this card and prepare for what just yesterday was thought to be unthinkable, right? And I cannot forget the weeks and months and receiving calls and emails and neighbors turning to us. Their local government, the people they knew that they could trust, for asking for help, for protection, for advice. And the same happened when thousands of federal employees received these fork in the road emails, along with the insulting rudeness and utter disrespect for their dedication to public service. So they too turn to their local government for guidance, resources, and help, and to reflect on what Vice Chair Coffey said. Yeah, this is us. For them, in that moment, Arlington was the collective us, and this board had to stand for that, and we did. And I'm so thankful to everybody, especially also to Arlington County staff, for for standing in the first row of response. That was some amazing work of first responding, and it is still. So one of the beauties of what I'm hearing today from our chair and vice chair and from all my colleagues is the absolute and unconditional commitment to not disappoint this trust that we built with so many Arlingtonians. We built anew this year. So to be the stable and resilient and reliable and values-driven institution that every Arlingtonian will be proud to call their local government, their home government. So each and every one, as you see, will bring their priorities, very detailed work plans, and we will enmesh and weave them together in our collaboration. And my colleague, Mr. Spain, expressed that beautifully, the collaboration among each other, with our constituents, with our great county staff, this is the fabric, and with our communities, with our neighborhoods. This is the fabric of resiliency and a fabric of solutions and good outcomes that we want to weave and make it very strong for everybody. So in terms of my priorities, like Ms. Cunningham's, they haven't changed, but as this year was rolling, I had a lot of new insights. So first of all, in full alignment with all my colleagues, focus on economic resiliency is for me absolutely paramount right now, technically extremely important. We are a place of opportunity that thrives when it welcomes employers, and entrepreneurs, when it creates jobs, and we can retain the best and the most skilled workforce in our nation. This is not a given. This has been very challenging over the last few years, and it's not only during the latest federal change or federal troubles that this changed. We have been recalibrating, and we have to continue to recalibrate and strengthen our commitment to small businesses. Remember that 1 out of 3 Arlingtonians works in a small business. We need to recommit to the fact that housing, transportation, that includes funding Metro, education, that includes APS, and placemaking, that includes the indispensable role of the arts, are critical factors for economic success. We need also to position ourselves in more competitive ways to strengthen our hospitality sector, to network and boost our higher education institutions, and not to forget APS again, because this is a critical factor of the path to success here, and cultivate their role as they will be helping us not only growing the next gen of the best workforce in the nation, but also the next generation of entrepreneurs and innovators. We have to create incentives and a space for other types of industries, like the healthcare industry. Like, for example, we are already working on VHC on Carlin Springs. There is a lot of additional opportunity there. And we have to make sure that we rediscover and indeed we focus on remaining attractive for foreign investment, which still is $1 out of $4 that is invested in Northern Virginia. A lot will be, for me, at stake about housing this year as well. So I look very eagerly forward to the recommendation of the Law Residential Studies. Acres of plantable space can be secured and meaningfully regulated to help with stormwater management and supporting our tree canopy, at the same time that we have policies in place that will support housing creation for all budgets and at all layers of the market. I also look forward to the completion of phase 1 of our comprehensive plan update, the purpose of which is still and remains to combine the 12 comp plan elements into a contemporary vision of what a great living quality town we should aspire to become. It's about time after 4 decades to look at this. And I think the work that has been done there is extremely insightful. Our commitment to housing affordability and fair housing is now, in difficult times, more important than ever. Why? Because in this year, as you have heard from my colleagues, we will have to face decisions that will have to include trade-offs. So it is in difficult times when the money in our mouths matters the most. Also, this applies also to other policy choices, which includes many forms of yes in our backyards, including the initiative that the faith community is taking right now, trying to unlock thousands of acres of usable land for housing. Again, the biggest question remains, and I agree with my colleague, Vice Chair Coffey, rents continue to be quite unaffordable. Home ownership, quite unattainable. And at this time, we need to seriously study and understand the economics of our rental market, as our Housing Commission has suggested. It is also the moment to rethink how adaptive reuse, which has been a very successful tool, can obtain public benefits from development and sequester some of the value that is indeed created by commercial to residential conversions for mitigating impacts of the change in use. In a third bucket, I want to put some challenges that I consider today era-defining for Arlington. First of all, the emergence of artificial intelligence. This is deeply embedded in our lives already. It has impact, the reach of which is not yet well understood, and it's much less regulated. Privacy, cybersecurity, most importantly, significant, absolutely incredibly important impact on employment. We are a white-collar town still, and very, very susceptible to the introduction of a new industrial revolution. Impact on education and, of course, and governance. All this comes here to mind. We need to focus more on that, and I will be working, have been working this year already, and I will continue to work on this. We have a persistent childcare crisis that earned us a very doubtful first in the nation for cost of childcare. We have an emerging and pressing issue of senior poverty. With more Arlingtonians retiring, there is a growing part of them who are financially insecure, and then you have a cascade of them, food insecure and housing insecure and all the above. Our investment in excellent public education needs to be both expansive, but also fiscally sustainable. So I look really forward in continuing the ongoing intensive dialogue with our school board colleagues and between our staffs to find the best way to stretch the buck to support APS, in addition to what we are going to be doing in advocating for funds from the state. Youth well-being and mental health, which was an issue that dominated previous meetings like this, is to me still extremely important and a priority implementation item. After-school programs, we are working on that. We have already a good implementation, but I think that we have to do more. It's the year that we will that I look forward to the results of our master transportation plan update. Urban mobility has been changing. We prioritize walkability and bikeability and safe, short connections neighborhoods in a completely different way today. I think that Vision Zero has really refocused our efforts, and we see very good results out of that. The environmental transformation. Ms. Cunningham already mentioned that. Our climate action plan needs to make tangible and measurable and inclusive progress that includes the many, not only the very few who can still afford a solar installation, but actually begin to be implemented where we have communities that otherwise we wouldn't be able to reach them. So environmental justice is a key element of that, and I want to dive deeper in this year. Finding, and that's something that is really where my view has been enhanced during the last year, finding new and more efficient ways to deliver public services by rethinking the model of delivery. Police, fire, parks, libraries, sports. For decades, we have adopted a rather expansive model to enhance capacity and respond to growing demand, both qualitatively and quantitatively. But now we are in a place where we have a narrowing fiscal outlook, and fiscal pressure forces us to recalibrate and to reassess. As my colleague said, it forces us to innovate. So part of that is to really rethink the systemic ways we deliver services. Can we do the same with less? Can we apply our equity lens to be more deliberate and judicious in how and to whom we provide services and investments? Finally, the fundamental rift, and my colleague Mr. Spain mentioned that, of economic inequality, which is a source of tensions that the impact of which I see in every aspect of life right now. Most importantly, this rift, this difference, this asymmetry that we have in Arlington between those with growing wealth who are well off and a significant part of our population that is right now pretty desperate. We see that influencing every way and every in every aspect, the way we conceive our social safety net, the way we are working on battling housing and food insecurity, the way we are trying to tackle the mental health crisis. We need to change the way we see that. Until now, we thought that the social safety net is kind of a byproduct of our affluence in good budget years. We have to reassess and see that a social safety net that deserves the name has to be a systemic and essential investment in our community. And I'm always talking about the whole of Arlington. We need to reassess what is the fair share that Arlingtonians who can afford have to contribute to sustain the community that we have today in times where economic affluence is not anymore a given. So, colleagues, I'm finishing by saying that the work is cut out for us, and it begins right tonight. It actually continues tonight. I'm absolutely certain that the way we tackled the 2025, we will be able to tackle 2026. If nothing else, I'm extremely optimistic about the ability of Arlington to be such a resilient and resourceful community. I am looking forward to do what we started last year in earnest after the pandemic, to be out in the streets, out with constituents, to meet with people where they are. I'm absolutely excited to see our new schedule of 2 town halls and in-person open door Mondays. And I will wish you a healthy and successful and meaningful 2026. And for those in the room who are like me, Orthodox Christians, tomorrow is actually Christmas Eve. So Merry Christmas to you, to those who celebrate. This is the Gregorian calendar for those who want to Google it. So it works for a good part of the Christian faith. So thank you.
Let's wish him a Merry Christmas with a hand. We will not do a second round of comments. But we have had a chance.
Questions?
We have had a chance to share our thoughts, and you've been here. I suspect many of us will be able to stay and engage with you afterwards. But that is what we had for our agenda. Our next meeting is towards the end of the month. It'll be our first meeting. We may have closed session meetings in the interim. Happy New Year to everyone. We have a lot to do. And we look forward to working with you to try and serve our community best. Thank you. We're adjourned.